Hello once again, this is Zandra. Last week I spoke on the subject of deception and the place it has in our society today. And as we shift our consciousness within humanity's growth and development, we must redefine how we deal with deception. Deception happens, as I said last week, on a number of levels. Some levels we might be in control of, and some levels we have no control of because they are related to people in power or people who are the decision makers. So today I want to explore how we might deal with deception. How might we react to deception? And what might be a reasonable strategy to use when you believe or experience deception in your life? And for me, when I experience deception at any level, I have to ask myself the question, why is the individual or the organization or the institution motivated to deceive me and others? What's the motivation behind the deception? And why should I use my will and choice to accept the deception? And how might I challenge it? Others may have a different reaction. For me, it becomes a sort of intellectual debate with myself before I decide what I will do. But in that intellectual debate, I'm also seeking the guidance of spirit as to how I should respond as an individual in my own right. And often I am aware that anger goes out of the window, intolerance goes out of the window, and what comes into the thinking processes that I base my reaction on is the issue of motivation and what drives that motivation. Because if the motivation to deceive is a planned exercise or strategy, then the motivation behind it must be for greed, individual wealth, and individuality prominence. And when you think of someone taking part in a deceptive action for their own sakes, for their power, for their financial gain, for just having power over another, I feel sad for that person, because one has to live with themselves when they have deceived another. One has to justify themselves to others indefinitely why they acted in that way. And therefore, the act of deception does not become my problem. It remains in the territory it belongs to with that individual. My response is to be tolerant and to be investigative and to be questioning of it and to question the motivation, but it's not to exert anger or hostility to the individual. I begin to feel sorry for that individual. I begin to feel the sadness within them that caused them to do such an action, and recognize the graciousness within me to recognize it, not adopt it, but work to change it. And in that working to change it, I develop contacts with others who may have of the same thinking like myself, to come up with an alternative to deal with the deception that goes on. When deception occurs at an institutional level, we have a bigger problem because we have multitudes of people to deal with. But when we deal with deception within the social discourses we have or the social networks we have, it's a very different problem. It's a very different approach one needs to have, because you know these individuals and you know their likes, dislikes, their understanding, their motivation. And if their motivation is similar to the organizational motivation or the financial motivation that we have in terms of greed, etc., then you have to decide whether or not that individual has a place in your environment. in your collective, and make a choice about accepting or maintaining contact with that individual and the reason for that ongoing contact. When that contact encroaches on your belief and truth within self, then you have a duty to self to cut cords, to keep an arm's length on anything that comes from that individual. And as I often say, when we listen to deception or a misrepresentation of issues, we take it with a pinch of salt. And normally I say to others, this time you need a tablespoon of salt, which means it's something you don't swallow lightly, and it's something that you will not participate in consciously or unconsciously. When we unconsciously participate in deception of another within our social circles or within our spiritual belief systems or our religious systems, then we are part of the problem. We have to then examine ourselves, examine what motivated us to accept the deception, and what allowed us to perpetuate the deception rather than calling it what it was. How often do you call deception what it is? Or how often do you accept the deception, walk away, and then have 101 things to say about it? My advice would be to anyone I speak to, or anyone encounters deception and bring it to my attention, is challenge it for what it's worth. Challenge it based on your belief system, your conscious, your will, your intuition. And if your intuition takes you into a particular line of questioning, of discernment, then believe that reaction. Don't try and modify the reaction to suit the other person because you're worried about offending them. They have already offended you. You don't have to offend them. You just have to make a decision and the use of will not to engage in the deception any further, and to call it what it is, and to call that onto that individual, to reflect on their deceptive behaviors and what they benefit from it. Don't go into long discussions, because we all are capable of having long explanations to the simplest thing. And when deception occurs, we apply it even much stronger. We thicken the soup, we lengthen the drink, we extend the cord of acceptance to not to offend. Deception doesn't require us to offend anyone. It requires us to recognize deception for what it is, to speak thy truth, to reflect with that individual the purpose behind the deception, and try and help them understand that deceiving another has more reaction to their own will and their spiritual path than it has on the other. And if it is for monetary gain, we ask the question, a simple question: what will you benefit from it? And how long will that benefit make you feel fulfilled? Is that person fulfilled by deceiving or not? Do you wish to participate in something that is unfulfilling? I doubt it. And when we explore with the individual the rationale behind their deceptive behaviors, perhaps we can form a judgment that it is worth discussing, it is worth pursuing, or it does not worth pursuing. And when it does not worth pursuing, my advice would be, take a walk, take a breath, count to 10, and cut cords, because the time will come when they will apply that deception to you and your relationship with them. And the question you will have to ask yourself is, would I be happy knowing that this person has deceived me once again? I doubt it. If you are happy with being deceived or unwilling to challenge deception, then you're part of the problem. If you challenge the question from, or the situation, or the dynamic, or the discourse from within your own truth, then you have no reason to doubt that your intuition, the will you have, and the use of your will has led you in the right place. If you are comfortable with how you've handled another's deception based on use of intuition and will and guidance from spirit or the ancestors or people you trust around you, then be contented that that person needs to address the deception in their own time and in their own way. It is not you or my responsibility. It is not our responsibility to try and change their will or to try and change their level of thought or their perception on this deception. They have to live with themselves. And perhaps what we can say to that individual, let's hope you're going to be happy when the consequences of the deception comes home to roost. It comes home to roost on different levels, on a spiritual level, on a social level, on a legal level. How will that individual cope with it? Who will they seek assistance from to get out or to create a shift in the perceptions they have left with others? Because to leave an impression upon another that you are deceptive and that you operate from a deceptive mode, your levels of social interactions start to shrink. And the question is, how do they survive in a shrinking social intercourse when the people around them no longer trust them, no longer value their opinions or their insights, and who questions whether or not cords should be cut permanently? So think on it, debate with another, explore with someone you trust or know very well, and determine how you will deal with this deception in the future. Don't just accept it and just turn away. Don't just walk away, because we all have a responsibility and a duty to ensure that the guidance we seek from spirit is the truth, and the truth from within is what we are guided to adhere to. So today, I thought I would discuss briefly how we deal with deception, but it's all often left to the individual. So you can decide how you wish to deal with it and whose help you seek in that dealing with that experience of being deceived. And if you have been able to find a solution in a discourse with another, then exercise discernment, exercise truth, and exercise will, and deception may fall apart within a very short period of time. I hope you have explored the issues of deception as I mentioned last week, and I hope you will explore today's video and the rationale behind how any one of us deals with deception at any one point in our lives, whether it's on an emotional level, a physical level, a financial level, a global level, or institutional level. We have a duty to ensure that it does not play a significant part in our lives. I welcome you to my channel again, and if you like or wants to share a view on what I've said, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will speak with you again soon. Thank you very much, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.